maybe expert about the Vietnam is very now broke every year. And that's the reason they very interesting about the view about the church, how they can manage when they living or they pass away. That's the reason today I would like to invite you come and ask you some question about the living church. And the first, I would like you explain more about what is the living church for maybe experts can understand more.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I think that we would have a very good cooperation because of your expertise in the Vietnam side, and then be able to pair up with the U.S. estate planning. But yeah, a living trust, that's a great question. Very simply put, a lot of people think of the will, the last will and testament, as a document that you can leave your assets to your kids or your spouse. And so that's what people think of from the movies. But in fact, in America, if you go through with a will, then you have to go to court.
Yeah.
You have to open a whole court case, which we call probate. And in my state, my home state in California, a very simple probate court case can take at least 18 months to 2 years for a simple one, and more if there's any fighting or contest. With a trust, a living trust would basically completely take over or substitute this will under trust law. And so then you can leave all the things that you would put in a will, and leave to my kids, to my wife, to the charity. But it avoids this long court process, and it can just be done privately. And so a living trust, or a revocable trust, or revocable trust, is a document that we put together to leave your assets to your heirs without going through the court process. So it's a much shorter. We could do it in a day, even if we need to do that, to transfer assets. So it's a much more simple process.
Oh, simple process.
Yeah.
And do you think if the U.S. American guys living in Vietnam, and why they make the living church?
Yeah, I think it's important when you, if you're living overseas, Vietnam, Asia, anywhere, if you're American or non-American, I have many non-American clients who have assets, bank accounts, retirement accounts, real estate, especially in the United States, then you want to be able to leave that smoothly with a trust. So your question is, there's expats in Vietnam from America, do they need a living trust? If they have assets in America, yes, then you want to use a living trust to be able to pass. Or you have young kids, that's another thing. With an estate plan, we also provide for guardianship issues for minor children.
And do you think is it important for setting up the living trust now?
Is it important to set up a living trust now? I call it like an insurance, right? We can do it. You only need it when you need it. So why I always say, set it up earlier than later. And usually, in my experience, there's different stages in somebody's life. One is when you buy a house. The other is when you have kids. The other is when you start getting older and retire. And obviously, I have some clients that are also on their deathbed too. So those are stages. So for somebody who's younger, who's starting to earn money and have assets, the other is when you have small kids.
Different with the will is how either similar the will or different with the will.
Right. So in an estate plan, a properly put together estate plan, I will have a trust and a will. So we'll have those drafted together. The will, as I said, is when you have the assets or your estate go to probate, goes to court. The trust doesn't go to court. If we didn't put something into the trust, then unfortunately we might have to use the will. So the purpose of the will is like a backup plan. If we've done everything correctly, we shouldn't have to use the will. But do I draft it? Yes, I draft the will also.
Okay. Is the will maybe Polo is the rule, and something is the Vietnamese or the U.S. state government, and is the living trust is not prepared just for the maybe follow their design for leaving the assets for the children or the family, right?
Right. But in terms of how you pass assets in America, the trust is equally as powerful as recognized as the will. So you don't really have to go through the will process. It's just set up differently. But I do encourage, especially expats in Vietnam, to also do their Vietnamese will to cover their Vietnamese assets. So the U.S. trust would cover the U.S. assets. Vietnam will would cover the Vietnam assets, and that makes it simple. Because if we put up a barrier in that way, we don't have a lot of the cross-border complications. And I think obviously you can speak better than me for the Vietnam side. But when we have it as two buckets, you're gonna be able to cover all the pieces, but we do it separately, and it's cleaner.
Okay, I see. And what type of the U.S. assets I can maybe put into the living trust?
Yeah, what types of assets that you can put into the living trust? Most important, real estate, so your house, right? You can put all your banking, checking, savings accounts, also brokerage accounts, like your Vanguard or Charles Schwab or Prudential investment accounts. For retirement accounts, like 401k or pension, a lot of those are set up, as people know, with you name your beneficiaries.
Yeah.
So those won't go into the trust like a bank account, but you can set it up where one of the beneficiaries, and I would advise the client if we want to have the beneficiary as the trust.
Yeah.
So that you don't put the 401k or retirement into the trust, but you have a beneficiary, you have the trust as a beneficiary. And then we can speak more of how to, we would draft it, we would craft the trust in a way that would save taxes on how we do that. Yeah.
Okay. And if the US guys stay living in the Vietnam, how do they making the living trust?
That's a great, yeah, that's why I think we have a good thing going. I'm based out in Southeast Asia,
Yeah.
and so as a California US attorney, we can draft a trust here.
Yeah.
We're very close to the embassy, so there's two ways. I would say best practice, get it notarized. Legally, you don't have to. You gotta get notarized at the US embassy here, or you can get it online notarized. And we can do everything here in Asia.
Yeah,
So I think that's the benefit, right?
Yeah.
We could do it without having to go back to the United States to draft a completely valid US living trust.
And I think the important question for the US citizen when they stay in Vietnam and maybe it's not luckily they pass away.
Yeah.
And what happened with the US living trust?
Right. So I mean, in effect, it's the same thing. I think it's just a matter of logistics. The entities like the bank or the property, they need to know that this person has died. In America, it's easy. We would have the county issue the death certificate.
Yeah.
Here would just be a couple more steps, right? Ultimately, we would still need something that recognizes from Vietnam that shows that like the equivalent of a death certificate. Ultimately, for the U.S. to accept it, it would have to go through that final process of the U.S. Embassy.
Yeah.
That they would say the foreigner had passed away, and they issue this document. But it would go through that process, like one country. And so then, when you have that equivalent death certificate, then you because we don't have to go to court. Okay, in America, we don't have to go to court for a trust. We just have to submit it to the bank.
Yeah.
Where we would record it. I would record it for the property. So for the real estate, in order to transfer to the next person or to the trustee, we just have to submit a document on the affidavit, death of trustee, that will record it.
Yeah.
I would include that death certificate for Vietnam.
Okay.
So it's quite simple, but yes, there's a couple more steps to show the death certificate.
Yeah. Maybe it's easy done the will. Now I make the case will, and if maybe the people pass away,
Yeah.
and maybe help you rule for the U.S. for rule law of the
Right.
Vietnam or the other country, and maybe something if they have the children, they have a man is a wife.
Yeah.
How can they make the dispute?
Right.
And maybe the pass away cannot want you that it, and I think they just can make better than the will. Now, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Because when you probate it, you have a judge
Yeah.
that needs to see everything. We submit it, and it could be rejected.
Yeah.
In a trust, it's very different. It's not going in front of a judge. We just have to record the document. I just go to the bank and show the death certificate, and it transfers. It was much easier.
Yeah, and I know it's maybe like in Japan and some country, it's the tax for the heritage is very high.
Right.
Yeah, and it like using the living trust maybe can reduce the tax, or maybe have to submit more tax like the will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question in terms of taxes, right? Taxes is a whole issue, and we can do a whole new video just on inheritance, estate tax.
Yeah.
There's estate tax in America, which for most people doesn't matter because you have to be quite high in your estate. There's capital gains tax, and then there's other taxes like property tax, income tax that may or may not come into play. But I think that's generally the trust doesn't protect you from taxes. It's the biggest protection is for probate. But we can. I think that would be a great topic that we can
I
dive
think
into.
that's the reason I read the news and I see in Japan many the people don't want to get the will because tax is very high.
Right.
And they need many the house in the country.
Right. It might. Yeah. It's a much bigger cost. So I'll give you an example. So if I do probate on a case, if they own a house, think generally. I'll just give a very general 1% of the total market value of the house. So in America, I can own a house in San Francisco, $3 million.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't own it because I have loans. So maybe I have $500,000 loans, and I only have $500,000 equity, $3 million loan.
Yeah.
If I do probate, my fees is 1% of 3.5 million, not 1% of 500,000.
Okay.
So that's a big difference. Yeah. That's a huge legal fee for probate. Yeah. So yes,
I think
there's
it's
fees,
interesting. You should check for we can dip into the maybe more the taxes.
Yes, we can talk about fees.
Yeah. Okay, and please come back the living just. And if I want to update the living just, how I can update
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
want to?
So if we want to update, technically you just get any estate's lawyer. But if I'm, we're here, we can do the update. So if there's updates, some of the updates would be if you want to change the trustee,
Yeah.
you want to change the beneficiaries,
Yeah.
then it's an update. If you buy another house or have more money or more assets, you don't need to update the trust. You just need to tell the bank that you need to title it. So that actually doesn't require a lawyer to do anything.
Yeah.
But if you want to change, you say, well, my sister is my trustee, but now my kids are older, they can be trustee. Yeah, we would do an amendment to the trust.
Yeah.
But it's pretty simple.
It easy processing for updating or for changing for reporting the living just.
Yes. It's while you're alive. That's why it's called a revocable trust. While you're alive, it's completely revocable. It's amendable. You just want, but you should have a lawyer draft the amendment.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
You just draft it and then you sign it, and you can amend the trust. Yes.
How can I choose the right maybe the lawyer about the aesthetic when I living in abroad? We live in Vietnam, and
Right.
if the client is US, come to and ask me the living church, and in Vietnam don't have the church,
Right.
they follow the civil law.
Right.
That's the reason. If the US stay in Vietnam would like to find the lawyer aesthetic, how they can do.
What an easy! Wow, you give me such a good question. Well, so I do it, but we would be working. I think because we work together, where you do the
Yeah.
Vietnam side, they should just contact you.
Yeah,
and ask.
okay.
But that's what I do is the U.S. estate plan.
Yeah. Okay, they can write with the lawyer, the attorney, for drafting, amending the living church.
Yeah. And we can do. Right now, everything's so easy. We can just have a video call and we just have a free consultation for them.
Yeah. And what is the best processing for change for the US asset into the living church?
Yeah, so that's very important. You have to change the asset.
Yeah.
That is actually not hard. The Charles Schwab or any of the brokerages, they do it all the time. And a lot of them actually just do it online. You just change the name.
Yeah.
Some of them have a form, I believe, and you just put in, it's Stephen Liu. Now it's the Stephen Liu Trust. I just need to put in, and I fill out the form, submit it.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward these days.
Yeah. And if now I have the US guys would like to make the living church now, and what will they do? The first step.
Yeah, the first step would be I always encourage to have a free legal consultation, so we can talk it through and ask all the questions you need to ask. Right? Don't worry about time. Let's get through and get through and see if you need it. Right? Sometimes maybe you don't need it. And then if we decide that we want to move forward, then I would ask them some of the simple questions.
Yeah,
Like who are you going to be the trustee? How much you would give? Whatever. And then after that, you would hire us, retain us, and then we draft the documents. We can meet here.
Okay.
And then sign everything at notarize everything at the embassy, and then finish the documents here.
Usually, how long? When they
gosh.
ask and would you
Very
finish?
simple. I mean, you know what? The holdup usually is the client trying to think, oh, maybe who do I want? Who do I want as the trustee? So then that sometimes takes a while. But if those questions are answered, we can have a turn up. We can have the meeting, draft it in a week, review it, and then we have another meeting to just go through the document and then sign. The other slow part is sometimes the embassy.
Yeah.
You have to schedule the appointment. So my practice is if somebody wants to get it done is let's schedule the meeting. So sometimes, it's in 1 month. That's the first meeting. So we make the appointment at the embassy. 1 month. So today we start.
Yeah.
And then we get everything done. So by then we should be finished. And you just go to the embassy, get everything signed. So sometimes the time is when the embassy has an appointment open. So let's get the embassy appointment first, and then we work towards getting that done.
Okay.
And I haven't had a problem.
Not long time.
Not a long time.
Maybe once one.
Yeah, if we can get appointment sooner, it could be even sooner.
Okay. Thank you so much, Luke. Yeah, very useful information for expat in Vietnam, especially the American guy. Yeah, many there is interesting or living just and they would like to find more about information how to process. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, finish.
Very fast.
Okay, thank you.